This presentation is brought to you by benlowery.com.
Frank and Gwen, welcome to the call. How are you both today?
You guys are fine. We're fine.
So nice of you to take the time to let me interview you today. And we're going to be talking mainly about the books, The Art of Passing the Buck. Is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now,
Volumes 1 and 2.
Yeah. Yeah, and the website, just in case anybody wants to look it up while they're listening to us, is passingbucks.com. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of an intro or a little bit of background of what this is all about? Just lead us into it a bit.
The book is the result of approximately 10 years' experience in advising and helping people set up common law trusts, which are very complicated and need a lot of administration. We have at least 10 people, if not more, who were involved in learning and setting up these trusts. And it was a mega experience. We claim to have over 100 years experience doing it. And it was exciting and thrilling, and we actually did find a way to set up families where they could perpetuate their wealth, which of course got into trouble with the agenda of the controllers of the planet. So
Right.
We have that experience too. And it's a book about inheritance more than anything else, and the art form of passing on wealth, which is a mega subject, and we found out it was deliberately deleted from all the educational systems and curriculums, including the legal training. The legal training about passing on wealth is very small. It's in reference to just setting up the paperwork. It has nothing to do with the actual hands-on experience. But our book is about the hands-on experience, how to raise your children so you can pass on wealth. And there is the crux of it. It's how mommy and daddy treat the baby, which allows the baby to grow up and handle wealth. And that is an art form.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Now, would you just give us a little bit of an insight? What is a common law trust? Because this topic is so popular on the internet, as you're well aware, and I know very little about trusts really.
Most people who get trust, the first trust they usually get is usually a sham. They'll have somebody else do it for them, and they will get ripped off in the end because they get a stack of paper and they say, "Oh, I have a trust now. I can do this and I can do this," and basically they're trying to hide behind the trust as far as the government is concerned. In other words, they have something in front of them to keep the bullets away that the government's going to shoot at them, but that doesn't work.
The common law trust is one that can be privately set up. You don't need to go to a lawyer to do it. And the common law trust requires trustees, and this is where most of the people don't understand. They don't understand the relationship between the trustees, the beneficiaries, and the settler.
And most people that get trust also, they fail to learn about what they have in their hands, and that's the biggest fallacy. They figure that they have the documents, that's all they need, but no, they need the training. They need to learn what they have and how to operate it. If they don't have those particular elements in place, they lose.
And the lawyers that set up trusts have no administration training mostly, and very few of them understand the overall greater implications. We've seen sham trusts set up by lawyers that are regular statutory trusts that are just ridiculous.
And they laugh about it when you tell them, when you poke at it and say, "Well, what about this?" And they laugh. "Oh, that was in there deliberately."
Yeah, they set up back doors so that they have the authority to take all the money out of the trust.
Oh wow! So there's a difference from a statutory trust and a common law trust. Is that right?
Yeah.
The common
Yes.
law trust is private.
A statutory trust has to be set up under law. Common law trust is set up under your God-given right.
Your common law right.
Your
It comes
common law
from
right.
England, by the way.
Right. Okay.
You know, the Bill of Rights and all that comes from England, and it's your right to be free. And so the common law trust is very attractive to the patriot community because you have a right to set it up. But what they don't tell you is what it takes to set it up, and that's huge.
So the information about common law trusts has been kind of forbidden and kind of deleted and suppressed, and because they don't want people to know about this. Is that right?
Right, it's a big power game because the ultra rich, of course, have common law trusts. And what is in the common law trust that is so powerful is called trust certificates, which are available in scads of information on court cases in the United States. And there's always a discussion about, and they created the trust certificates incorrectly. All right. Well, if you back it out and re-engineer it, you can eventually figure out how the trust certificates should have been used. But the trust certificates are the secret to setting up any kind of financial system anywhere at any time. And so if you can understand how to set up trust certificates in a trust, you can also understand how to set up a bank or a country or anything else. This is where they really don't want you to know how to do it.
Right.
And with the common law trust, it's a private contract. It's like a contract between you and I, and nobody else is involved. And as long as it's not against, it has nothing in it that is inhumane or violates any particular law, the government has no say-so in the matter. It's a private contract. They can't even really look into it. So that's something they don't like, because if a lawyer sets it up, they can look into it. So, and also with the common law trust, all the documents are private if you want them to be. If you don't want them to be, they can be public. When a person has a common law trust, they will find out. They'll say, well, it has everything set up in a blind trust, and they died. We don't know who the beneficiaries are. That's because everything is private.
In a statutory trust, it's filed in the counties, and the names of the beneficiaries are given. And I had this happen to me because my father did a statutory trust, and he had filed it in the county, and the beneficiaries were named in the trust. There are people that go through these county documents looking for that information, because if the beneficiaries can be identified, then there's an assumption that the beneficiaries have there's a buku money, right? And so they become targeted. So if you are ultra wealthy, if you're one of the big international bankers, you do not want to have your beneficiaries known because they're targeted. So you have to think like a huge, mega, psychopathic international banker to really understand the issue of privacy. Privacy is so key, right? And so with a common law trust, you don't have to file it with the county, but a statutory trust you do.
Oh, I see. Now, I've heard people say that the United States of America is a trust, or Canada is a trust. Is that correct?
I've heard discussions and lectures on it, and I've heard people referred to as beneficiaries, like the Social Security is a beneficiary. People are the beneficiary, but I don't know what kind of paperwork or what kind of legal standing the original trust was.
It's not really a trust. It's another word for it. And the people themselves are the beneficiary of the country, are the beneficiaries and the holders of the countries. It's a protectorate is what it is. It's called a protectorate. The government is responsible for protecting the people of the country, and the people basically hold the assets of the country.
I do know that there is a reference and there is documentation called the Louis Cassior Pasteur, I think I've got that wrong, trust. And there is actual documentation of that trust, and it did hold all the railroads and utilities and half the land in the United States. And it was held by the royals. But what I know about that trust, Louis
Cas Pasteur, I think.
Pasteur, I'll send that to you later. I can get the exact name.
Hmm.
I'm sure I have that wrong. Um, it that trust was held by the royals, and there was a lot of trust certificates involved. And it was set up in the 1700s by the surviving son of Marie Antoinette, and he came through England and then came here and set up this trust. But the trust is in, understand, some sort of court, because the trustees, of course, absconded with the assets. What else is new? And it's in a tremendous turmoil, and nothing's coming of it. So, but there was an effort to stick everything into a trust and all that through that mechanism.
I see. Oh, right.
Louis Pasteur, I think that's what it is. Louis
Okay.
Pasteur. Okay.
There's a lot of people that are fond of this idea, and I find it ever so confusing. Like, some people say we want to be beneficiaries, and some people say no, we should be trustees, and some people say we're grantors, and I've got no idea. So what's your...
The best place to be in a trust is being a beneficiary.
Okay.
You get all the milk, and you don't have to pull the cart. The trustees have to pull the cart,
Right.
and the general manager has to pull the cart. So if you're going to be anything, you want to be riding in the cart.
Right.
Okay, let's go through it very simply. The ideal situation is to get a huge family together and have the grandparents put together the trust. And it would even be better to have 2 or 3 sets of grandparents set up a mega trust. But let's just say my grandma and grandpa decide after they've made their millions to set up a trust. So they consult with people who have knowledge, and they pick their trustees. They pick 2 trustees, people they can trust and people who care about their family. So let's say grandma and grandpa are A and B, and the trustees are C and D. And so C and D meet with A and B, and they meet with counselors, and they together decide how this trust will be set up. And the details in that trust are, part of them are pretty standard, and part of them are very specific and detailed. Like, let's say they have a beneficiary that has a disease and chronically ill and may die at an early age. In the trust indenture, there's usually some instructions about how to handle that kind of situation. There's all kinds of details about who inherits what and in what order is the inheritance. There's details about medical, how to handle medical things, how to handle emergency fund things. There's a whole bunch of personal stuff that the grantors have to decide about, and the trustees need to be involved because they're the ones who have to administer it.
One other thing about the trustees cannot be related to the grantors. They can be cousins or farther back, but as far as being brothers, sisters, or children, that doesn't work.
Well,
It's
it has to be one of them is not related, but it's better in our experience to have both of them not related, because the ugly stuff that starts happening when you get a relationship in the trust as a trustee is just too complicated for words.
Right, I see. So it needs to be a carefully written document then. There's a lot to consider, is that right?
Yeah, our trust indentures run anywhere from 30 to 40 pages.
Right, I
which is
see.
big, and it took us 6 months to a year to put together a trust indenture because of all the questions and all of the details that are needed. We always put in our trust covering of alternative medical expenses because the insurance companies don't pay for that. So we would always include that. Educational policies and stuff like that would be included. also.
I see. And will the courts respect a private common law trust if
Oh,
there's a
wait,
dispute or something?
Definitely.
we just won the battle.
Oh, really?
And then also,
Yeah.
we had one other trust that was pulled into court, and uh, uh, they asked for a copy of the trust. And what happened is the judge looked at it, and if he made any ruling on it, what would happen is, because it was so well put together, if he made any ruling on it, he could be affecting some of the larger families. So he said, there's only two things that I want out of this. He says, one, I don't want to see this trust in my court. And
Okay.
the second thing is, I want a copy of it.
The other thing is we just came through the court system this last year, and it's posted on our site. You can see all the insanity about it, and you can see the results. And first of all, they could not take down the book, which they were really after. They wanted the book destroyed. And second of all, they couldn't get us for doing anything illegal. So, if anybody has any question about the legality of the common law trust, go to www.passingbucks.com, and you can see the nitty gritty of all the battle where the Department of Justice tried to destroy the art of passing the buck because we told about how to keep your inheritance.
I
Right.
don't know if you get a copy of that or not.
Oh, yeah. I can display an image of it on the screen, so yeah,
Okay.
I'll be
And
sure.
basically, the book comes in two volumes, and volume one is for anybody who is interested in trust and interested in asset protection, and it basically gives people the information that they would need, that they should go to a lawyer with and ask particular questions, and they can determine by reading the book whether or not they need a full-blown trust or they just need a simple will. Most people just need a will, and you don't want to die intestate, and so they just need something to protect their assets. But if they need a full-blown trust, then they need to go to volume two. And volume two, if you take it chapter by chapter, tells you how to set it up.
Let me go back to A, B, C, and D. A and B were the grantors, and C and D were the trustees. A and B have the mega bucks. So they legally turn these bucks over to the trustees. Now, the grantors are no longer legally responsible for that money, so they can't be taxed on it. So this is the beginning and the end of all I'm saying about taxes. Okay. So now the trustees have the responsibility of multiplying that money and distributing the excess or whatever they decide to distribute according to the rules in the indenture to the beneficiaries. And in volume two, we give a very good example of this because the William Hearst Trust, the great famous publicist, he published newspapers.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, he set up a big trust, billions of dollars, and the trustees were given particular instructions of only 1% of the profits are distributed to the beneficiaries, and the beneficiaries are named explicitly. Well, 1% of the profits is, millions of dollars,
right.
But these beneficiaries weren't happy with this. They wanted 3%. So they kept taking the situation back to court to try to get more money because, their millions every year wasn't enough. And this court case is in volume two. You can read about it, or it's referenced. You can go find it. It gives a really good example of, the trust is law. It's law of the family, and the judge cannot overrule the law. And it says in the trust indenture, the beneficiaries only get 1%. So the judge can't do anything about it.
And also, it can be put in the trust that if any beneficiary attempts to take the trust to court frivolously, they can be denied their beneficial right.
Oh, I see. So a clause can be put in there to
Right.
protect the trust from greedy beneficiaries.
Right.
Right.
So where are you at with your understanding so we know where to go with this conversation? Are you totally confused?
Oh no, that's making clear sense so far. I do have a question which was intriguing me. You said that if you register an ordinary trust, like a statutory trust with the county, then it's statutory. But do you register a private common law trust anywhere or not?
Well, there's ways to register it without registering it.
Oh, I see.
Sort of clandestinely, and it gets recognition, and uh, you can move through the system with the tax identification number, like banking and transacting business and everything else. And it does get registered, but it's sort of clandestine the way it gets registered.
Yeah, we found a trick.
Okay, right. Now, I don't know. I don't know if you want to go into that in any more detail, but maybe
No.
we could. Yeah, okay, right. I was wondering.
Not publicly, anyway.
Sure. Yeah, I
It's
understand.
totally legal. It's totally legal and
It's
totally
legal.
simple.
It's just,
It's just kind of silly, actually.
Yeah, well, people can get the
but
books if they want to.
if we told everybody publicly what they had, they would close that loophole.
It's
Right.
not a loophole. It's
Not a
legal.
loophole, but it's legal. But it's
Right,
they would find a way of doing it. That's the way it usually happens.
You know, that we have to deal with psychopaths. So
right.
it's on the internet all over the place now that the rulers of this world are crazy.
Yeah, of course. Oh, yeah.
We deal in trust world. If we had only known how crazy they were, we kind of would have probably not done this.
Right,
Because
right.
man, we've really had to.
Well, we've had to find out the hard way.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
we found out.
I mean, is it okay if we mention the injunction? Is it okay to mention that?
sure.
Okay,
Fine.
because there's been a lot of they've been trying to kind of stop your the books, and there's been a lot of controversy. So tell us a bit about that.
They accused us of everything under the sun.
You can look up the original injunction against us, the regular charges against us, and I think it's about 57 pages long.
Oh no, that's not the injunction.
I mean, not the injunction, the original charges against us.
Well, that part's not on the internet.
No,
but
it is on the internet, but it's not on our website.
Oh yeah, right.
You could just type in my name or Gwen's name, and it'll come up.
Right.
And our names can be found on passingbucks.com.
Yeah.
So, but you can type it in, and you can see what the full length of the charges were, and I think there was 57 pages of it, and it went as far as they didn't even like my name.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how nitpicky they were.
And then compare that to what the little mousy little kind of final
Then they got
document is.
eight pages. That's including 2 attachments that were the final resolution against us.
Yeah.
And they wanted to shut down the book, and they couldn't. The art of passing the buck. They wanted to shut those books down because they thought that they were in violation of tax law. They're not, and they never did prove that any trust that Gwen or I had set up in the past were a sham. They never did prove that, even though they were accusing us over and over again. Oh yeah, we know that you did this and you did this, but they never did prove any of that, and they never did shut us down. So therefore, the information we put in the book is valid, honest, and true, and it can used and operated if you follow the instructions to the letter. You can't just put the trust together and hide behind it like a lot of people do.
Yeah, you have to have legitimate trustees. And what happened in this situation, although the Department of Justice came directly against Frank and I, the book, Charles Arthur, we don't own it. We didn't write it. It belonged to a trust. And so we had the benefit of that trust behind us. And, it's like the one thing Frank and I know is the most important thing, and most people would just freak out with this, but go ahead, have your freak out. The most dangerous thing you can do on this planet is own something. You don't want to own a car, you don't want to own a house, you don't want to own anything. Just the clothes on your back and a little tiny checking account, and you're safe. And this is what a blind trust is. This is why you can't sue the senators and the congressmen, and I'm sure it's true in England. You can't sue any of those people. They don't have any money because it's all in somebody else's name. And this is the other thing that just drives the Department of Justice or any other predatory legal organization crazy. If you don't own anything, they can't punish you. They can't take it away from you. They can throw your ass in jail if they want. But,
People struggle all their lives to get something of value, like buying a house, and they pay on it for 20, 25 years, and they find themselves in problems with some officious of the government, some part of the government, and all of a sudden, everything that they struggled for the last 25 years is gone.
Because they never owned it.
They never really owned it.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. When it comes to the question of courts and jurisdiction, this is a question which is a mystery to me, and you know, a lot of people are trying to figure out how to deal with courts. Do you have any comments on that with regards to why, you know, why we become subject to statutory laws and things like that? Do you have any comments?
The overall agenda is to destroy evolution. And so if you understand that the predatory government is about making sure that you don't rise up and become powerful to overthrow them, then you understand they're always trying to pull the rug from under you. And I don't know about England, but in America, there's laws that the federal agents can lie, but you can't. You know, this is really an uneven stage.
If an FBI, if a person from the federal government, like the Department of Justice or the FBI or the Treasury Department, comes and asks you a question, and you tell them a lie, you can be arrested. But if they tell you a lie, there's nothing you can do about it.
So this is the predatory, psychopathic game of domination and control. And when it comes to the court systems, and I'm sure this is true throughout the world because these guys own the world, you have to understand that you're dealing with some very crafty and twisted minds. And the way we handled this court case is we just kept going into the details and straightening out the details over and over and over again. And because we had the law on our side and we could quote the law, we had knowledge. This is the way to handle any court system, whether it's state government, England, or India. If a person can come up with the actual law that's on the books, I would suspect in almost all cases they have to back down because these are their laws. They wrote them.
They're going to try and get you to answer or to respond to questions that are completely irrelevant to whatever is going on, and they get you going the wrong direction, and then they drop you. So they tried that with us a few times, and they found out it was going no place. So they finally, after about a year and a half, they finally had to settle.
Yeah, we
kept on cutting them off here and cutting them off there, and so they got it down from 57 pages to 8.
Yeah.
You know, it's really a skill of understanding their mindset and knowing your own stuff. This is why if you get trustees on your common law trust, you have to have trustees that have knowledge and have courage. If the trustees have to go to court, the trustees have to have the courage and the knowledge to go to court. And this is where the bigger trusts really succeed because they have the money to attract trustees of that nature. And Frank and I are knowledgeable in law in certain levels, and we had tremendous backup and help from another source.
Other sources.
Other sources. Yeah, we had a couple of people who really jumped in.
Even some people in Europe were helping us. So it was very good to have people, because we did ask for help initially, and all of a sudden we had 4 or 5 people jumping in and saying, okay, we can help you here. And they would throw things back and forth at each other, even though a few of them uh, have to been to college to study law.
We had one person who is very knowledgeable in law and procedure, and this is where most people who are of the patriotic mindset fail. They don't have procedure, court procedure. He was not trained in federal procedure, but it says in our letter to everyone, he spent, what, 100,000 hours or something, some amazing amount of hours in the federal library figuring out how to handle federal case law. And he did an extraordinary job.
Oh, wow.
And we get a download weekly on the current laws. And we were very lucky in this one situation where a particular court case was won in reference to a thing called Rule 65. And Rule 65 was you have to be specific, or the accusation or the issue is too broad. And it came out 2 days before we had to use it.
Oh.
So I'm quite sure the opposition was really shocked that we had that court case in our hands.
Oh, I see. So you'd learned it from receiving the newsletter, had you?
Yeah, we actually had the court case
Right.
emailed to us.
Oh,
That
right.
all their accusations were too broad, and they were trying to paint a house with the 10-inch brush, or trying to paint a room with the 10-inch brush, and they couldn't get the doors.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, and in one place I sent, not I, but me and several others, we put together a letter, and we just outlined the specific rules out of the Internal Revenue Code for trust conduct. I mean, what are they going to do with that? I mean, that's their rules, right? So these are the situations that you have to have. You have to have savvy. You have to have guts. You have to have knowledge to do a common law trust, because a common law trust is going to go against the grain. It's going to rub the fur the wrong way of the larger players.
right.
And it is legal, 100% legal.
Yeah.
And it's one of those situations to where be grateful that you have the right knowledge, but be terrified that the government knows you're right.
Yeah.
But it's the safest place. It's the safest place to put assets
Yeah.
today.
So this is exactly what these notorious banking families, like the Rothschilds. There's a comment in there: control everything and own nothing.
Yeah, right.
Or nothing, control everything.
Right.
That's how they do it.
So that's basically exactly what we're talking about. They're doing just that. They've got very little assets or money in their own name directly, but they control the world, kind of thing.
Basically, you can go through life, if you're set up in a trust correctly. You can go through life being indigent and taking everything that you possibly can get, and really not having any money of your own except for your $2.98 in your checking account, or in your pocket, only the clothes in your back and a few sundries, and that's it. If you have any jewelry or anything that you wear, you can drive a nice car and everything else, but you don't own it. Somebody else does.
If people were to create a common law trust for the purpose of protecting assets or inheritance and stuff like that,
That's what you're supposed to do.
well, yeah. But is it safe to assume that the establishment will probably try and attack it? Is that a reasonable expectation?
Only under certain circumstances.
Right.
And we can't go into those details.
Yes.
We know where we screwed up and got their attention, but 10 years of experience with absolutely no mentoring and trying to figure it out the hard way. Oh, well, we screwed up. We only screwed up on one thing, okay?
Right.
Everything else we pretty much had straight. So you can run a common law trust without ever attracting the attention of the authorities if you do it correctly.
Oh, I see. So in hindsight, it would have been easier not to have got their attention, would it?
Yeah, there was some. I
Right.
wish we had known, but it's way too hard to know everything in a vast subject like this.
Of course, yeah.
And the thing that I think I'd really like to nail on the inheritance issue, because this is what we really are talking about, is raising your children correctly is the key to passing on wealth. And that's the information in volume 1. You don't even have to go to volume 2 to get it. There's a whole bunch of experience about children and how interfacing with parents is really, it really got screwed up, okay? And so a lot of rich people turn their kids over to the nannies and stuff like that, you know? So there's a big break in the bonding situation and the communication. And then these rich people want to pass their wealth on to these kids that have no training and no foundation. And
The kids end up being resentful.
because they want love first.
Right.
So there's a bunch of information in volume 1 about the whole parental child relationship stuff. There's also a bunch of information about experiences with experiences professionally where the legal situation got involved, especially on this death and dying. You know, the grandfather is dying in the hospital and he gives all his assets to the nurse. You know, those situations. There's all kinds of experiential information in the art of passing it back. And we really don't expect people to go to volume 2 unless they're really, really serious, because that's why it's so pricey. But if you finish reading the volume 1 and you really want to go to the higher level octave, you really want to do it, then you can go get volume 2.
Okay, and can people order it directly from your website?
Yes,
Yes,
they can.
yes, they can.
Okay, so right, so volume 1 is the good place to start, so they can start with that.
That's a requirement. If we have a system where we can help people, we can't put the trust together for them any longer, but we can assist them in putting their trust together. That's something we had to give up under court order, and they didn't want us to do this, but they had no qualms because it's our
First Amendment right.
our First Amendment right to help them. Uh,
And it's also our livelihood. They can't take away your livelihood.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
we can help them put it together, and then when people if people want to really go to it to get a trust, first of all they have to read both books, and if they want to proceed in putting a trust together and they want our help, they have to answer some questions that we're going to ask them that are in the books. The answers are in the books. If they can't answer the questions, well, go back and reread it, then try again, or go at it yourself, because we don't want to deal with people who want other people to do it for them. Because once you get a trust, you have to do it yourself.
It's a life change.
It's a life change.
It's huge. It's a huge responsibility, and you better know what you're doing.
And we helped put the books together because we thought the time was right. And as you can see that our age is getting up there, and we wanted to pass this on to the next generation so it doesn't get lost. So we had to dig out stuff that was 50, 100 years old and to go back to bring it forward into this current time. And things have changed in the last 50 to 100 years as far as the laws are concerned. In fact, I talked to a lawyer, and you mentioned the law. He said, "Oh, well, that's old law."
Yeah, the Constitution's old law.
The
Uh-huh.
Constitution is old law, but it's still applicable. They don't realize that, but that's not how they play the game.
So
They want to get you answering the wrong questions again.
Yeah, I see.
So volume 2 is only for the serious student or the professional.
Okay. You mentioned you're familiar with Alfred Adask. I think you know him. Is that right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
right.
both-
Great. Tell us a little bit about the anti-shyster, because you were involved with that. Is that correct?
We're not really involved with it. Gwen and I and a couple other people put together a magazine. Gwen was the founder of it,
Oh, wow.
Perceptions Magazine.
Oh,
I don't know if you've ever heard of it. You can probably see copies of it on the internet.
right.
It's been down about 10 years now. And Al Adask was an advertiser, plus we communicated back and forth. And the last conversation I had with him is that over the Montana Freeman. I don't know if you ever heard of those people or
Yeah, I
not.
have. Yeah.
And he said to me, he said, one thing about doing something in the United States, he said, you can talk about killing a member of Congress, blowing up a building, you can talk about anything. But there's one thing that you can't do. You can't mess with their money. If you mess with their money, they're coming after you. And that's exactly what the Montana Freemen did. The Montana Freemen were messing with their money, and they shut them down really quick. And some of those people are still in jail. And this has been 10 years. They get 30-year sentences. Nothing for nothing violent. They get 30-year sentences.
Yeah, one of the members of the Montana Freemen that was in prison uh, wrote Perceptions magazine, and so we became a pen pal to him. So we got to hear how it was done and what they were doing and all that. But it was one of those things that it's a loophole and the government shut it down.
Oh, I see. My gosh, playing with fire is serious stuff, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah, we,
Especially when you got a match and they have a flamethrower.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
that's the other thing. You have to understand how big the opposition is and how crazy they are
Yeah,
and what they will do.
yeah.
I mean, I used to have a picture on my wall when I was at Perceptions, and it was a guy, a SWAT team member, and he had a, machine gun holding it, and his mask on and everything, and underneath it it said, "We're from the government. We're here to help you."
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Really?
yeah. It's good. It's good. It's good to have a healthy respect for the opposition, isn't it? I think some people are a little
That's
bit naive. They jump head first into this stuff. Taking the
yeah.
plates off of their car, and next
Yeah.
thing you know, you're in prison, kind of thing.
Oh, I want you to know, I drove 5 years without plates on
Oh,
my car.
really? Oh,
Yes.
oh, do tell us. Do tell us a bit
Yeah.
more.
Oh, all right. I'll tell you. This is a fun story.
Yeah.
At Perceptions magazine, there were several of us who drove around without plates on our car,
Oh.
and the Perceptions magazine was located in Culver City, California, and the Culver City police would come by and kind of it was kind of like a shakedown for magazines. But it wasn't like I wasn't threatened or anything, but you could tell they were wanting some magazines.
Right.
And we had a big full-page ad in the magazine from Richard McDonald, and it was about running around without license plates on your car,
All
right?
right.
And I heard that the Culver City chief of police wanted those magazines.
All right.
Anyhow, it was kind of fun.
Oh, wow.
How
So
did
you
you
were
know?
successful at that then?
Well, I was successful on the surface, but on the back door they stole my car and trashed it.
Right.
So they didn't, there was evidence that they had put a brick on the
Accelerator and ran it into a wall.
yeah. So that was what they thought about the no license plates, but
Uh,
it was interesting. 5 years, I got away. I did it.
wow.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
Really
But they
amazing.
just got tired of her driving around with no license plate. So the one night they stole the car
Ran it into
and
the
they
wall.
ran it into a wall. And who are you gonna call?
Right.
Yeah.
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 I mean, you gotta say,
No, that's
oh,
right.
oh,
Yeah, yeah. They've got the stick, haven't they? They've got the gun. Yeah. And
yeah, so people who are going to go up against the system have to have some savvy. They have to
yeah,
understand what they're doing and how they're doing it.
yeah,
We know a lot of people that go to court and fight and argue, and some win and some lose, but they have to have a lot of guts to stand there in front of a judge.
yeah.
I mean, the judges in America are bankruptcy judges. America was bankrupt in 2000, what's it, 2013,
1913.
1913.
Right.
We were declared bankrupt, and so all the judges are bankruptcy judges, and they work for the Federal Reserve Bank.
Right.
And people don't understand that the judges are threatened, and if the judges don't do what they're told, their family will be killed, and so on and so forth.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
this is for everybody in the world. All the judges are like, they got a gun to their head. The psychopaths aren't going to let them be fair judges. And
Right.
so if you're going in about taxes, you got to understand that your life is not as important as the life of their children and the life of their wife and, and so on and so
Yeah.
on.
If you hire a lawyer and you go into court,
Yeah.
you basically are a ward of the court then. And the attorney or the lawyer has a responsibility. He has first of his responsibility is to the court. His second responsibility is to the bar association here in the United States. His third responsibility is to his family and his automobile, and his client is usually about a fifth or sixth. And if the judge does not like what you look like, and because you are a ward of the court, he can put you in jail for a week because maybe you can change your looks in 7 days or whatever.
Well, I don't think that's fair to a judge. I
Well,
think that he has to have a
have a
reason.
ruling, but the thing of it is, you are in the judge's hands. The judge can do anything he wants to with you because you are a ward, and a ward is like an infant. They can't handle their own affairs, and you prove that by hiring a lawyer.
Right. Right.
It was a turnabout in this court case that we just did because we knew this, that attorneys uh, are beholden to the court first and their client next. And so we turned it around in our current case with the current attorney, and we said, get your client under control. Don't you know you're responsible to the court and the law and not your clients?
Mm. Yeah. 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 That's funny.
I mean, we knew that, so that was probably a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah. 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 That's funny. Recently, a lot of people have been talking about the idea of being an executor. Everybody seems to be talking about this. People say there's an estate and all our stuff is part of this estate and we're an executor. What's your comment on that way of looking at things?
Well, that's a statutory situation. Being an executor, it's usually set up with the bank. When someone passes, they'll say, "Well, I want this person to be an executor," and it's a statutory situation. So,
It's a distribution. They're responsible to distribute according
right,
to the court or according to some document or something.
Right, so that's for when someone dies. So right, so
right.
I'm a bit confused why people seem to be viewing themselves as the executor. I don't quite understand what they're trying
Well,
to
they
do there.
can be an executor, but really doesn't mean anything. They are handling somebody else's property for distribution
And getting a nice fat
and
percentage.
getting a percentage of it.
Right.
It doesn't come under trust
Law.
law
Okay.
or situations. Basically, when the grantors of a trust die, uh, nothing really happens. The trustees continue doing their business. In other words, if they were doing a distribution before, they will continue doing a distribution. They'll have a ceremony for the grantors of the trust, but nothing happens. The trust didn't die; just the settlers died.
Mm.
But the trust keeps on going on. They've had trusts here in the United States that have been going on for 300 years.
Mm.
And in Europe and England, some of them are 600 or 700 years. Like the Rothschilds have a trust, we know, and they've been going on for what, almost 600 years now.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
uh,
I see.
and if one of the Rothschilds die, what happens?
Nothing.
Nothing really with the trust. The trust keeps on going on.
See, the trustees have the money, not the beneficiaries.
Mm.
So it's perpetual. This is the other reason they don't like common law trusts.
Right. When it comes to the topic of equity, this is something that a lot of people have got confusion about. People say that trusts are part of equity law as separate from common law, but could you give us a bit of clarity on what that means?
Equity law is contract law. And so the trust is a contract. And so
Trust.
that's correct.
Oh, right.
It
So
is.
trust is a contract.
Right, a trust is a contract. So under the United States Constitution, section 1, what,
Article 1, Section 10.
the right to contract is established. Now, there's something very, very significant about that. The blacks were enslaved in the South because they had no right to contract. And what makes us free is the right to contract.
Right.
And so that's how you enslave a nation. You take away the right to contract.
Right.
And so they can't take away the common law trust because it's simply a contract.
Mm.
And that's that. It's a contract.
And trusts basically are divided title. One is the legal title is held in the trustee's name, in the trust name, with the trustees being responsible for the law. And the other half of the title is held by the beneficiaries. They own the assets. So
They don't own the assets.
well,
they have use of the
they
assets.
have use of the assets. So it's divided title. So if the trustees have a contract with a third party, and the third party says, "Well, I want you to sign," and you say, "Okay, I'll sign it as Frank Ozak, trustee, and not personally for etc. trust." And they'll say, "Well, no, I don't want that, not personally." I'll say, "Well, okay, fine, because we've had this happen." I'll say, I am signing for the trust, but if you don't want me to sign for the trust, I will take this because the trust is on the document. I'll have to send it around to all the beneficiaries to get that signed, so you can probably have your document back in about a year or two." So no, we'll just take it that way.
Right.
Besides that, in that particular situation, the trust had the money, not the trustee. Right?
And the
So,
beneficiaries don't have the money.
right, so the trust is the only one they could sue to get the money if they needed to.
Right.
So why they don't want you to sign not personally is ridiculous, because that's where as trustee and not personally puts the trust liable, and the trust has the money, so that's the one you want to go to.
Right. I see. Oh yeah, the trust itself holds the money, not the trustee. I see.
Right.
The trust holds the asset and the money, and it's if the trustee is smart, the trustee has another trust themselves, and they don't really have anything anyway.
Right. Yeah. It starts to make sense once you start to kind of build a picture of these sort of trusts inside
I have
trusts
a
and
little story that I like to tell. It's about a man has a large estate, and he has a 6,000 square foot home, and he has a couple kids and a dog and uh, a Porsche and a BMW and a cigarette boat and all these nice little toys, And he has his couple of kids, and he has his dog, and he has his dog in trust, and he has his car in trust, and he has the boat in trust, has a house in trust, has a property in trust. And the
different
kids,
trusts.
they're all different trusts, because they're all sub trusts of the main trust that pays all the bills. And his kids are outside one day, and they're playing with their dog. And the neighbor comes by, and the neighbor gets a little bit rough with the kids, and the dog jumps up and bites him. And the guy runs away holding his arm, and you offer to pay his bills for his medical bills and everything else. He says, "Well, I'm going to sue you." So he goes ahead to sue the estate, and he finds out that the dog is in a separate trust, and all the house and the cars and the boats are all not part of it. So he goes to sue them, and he wins. So you know what he ends up with?
nothing.
The dog that bit him.
Oh, the dog that bit him.
Because that was in the trust.
Oh,
That was
right.
in the
That was the only thing that was in the trust, the dog that bit him.
Right. That's good, because that really explains it quite well, doesn't it? That analogy.
It's separation of assets.
Yeah.
Keep everything a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, and it just.
And there's another story about oil wells.
Yeah.
This guy had oil wells, he put them into trust, and the trust consultant said, "You don't want to put them all in the same trust, you want to put them in separate trusts." He had 3 oil wells.
Right.
And he said, "Why?" And he said, "Because if something happens with one oil well, you don't want to lose the other 2, right?"
Yeah.
So they set him up in 3 different trusts. And unfortunately, after a while, a little child fell into one of the oil wells and was killed. And so the family sued and got that oil well, but the other 2 were saved.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah.
It's a fortunate story,
Yeah.
but it really demonstrates how, because each trust has to have a separate what causes trust to be separate is that either separate grantors or different beneficiaries. So if the same grantor set up those two trusts, then there would have to be three different sets of beneficiaries to make them
He could
legally
have
separate.
he could have three children and set up three different. He could have two children and set up three different trusts, and he'd have A and B on one trust, then it'd have A on the other trust, and it'd have B on the other trust, and that would cover three different separate beneficiaries.
I see. So if they got identical grantors and beneficiaries on each trust, then they're not really separate.
They're considered one trust. They're
I see.
considered the same.
I see. I've got a little technical question for you. I hope you don't mind. If the trust has got a bank account, and the bank account being part of the public banking system, is that a problem or not?
No,
Oh, it has to have a checking account.
it has an EIN number here, and it can operate in the banking system and
Okay.
conduct business, can buy stock, can buy real estate, can sell real estate,
I see.
can do all the normal things that a person can do, a human being can do.
Oh, I see.
So it has no problem providing it has the right numbers, and it has the beneficiary. It has the trustees that are smart enough how to draw up the documents and put the documents through correctly. And somebody smart enough also to assemble the documents, which is very important, and make sure that most people, when they're dealing with trust in a business situation, don't know how to handle it. Well, I've never done one of these before. Well, here, we'll train you. And they're usually, we make the paperwork correctly, so they're not only protected, but the trust is protected also.
Oh, I see.
And a trust is a family business. It's how to turn the family into a business. And so instead of coming together for just Christmas, you come together to have a board of trustees meeting and all the beneficiaries show up.
Yeah.
The potential of a trust to build family cohesion is huge. But you have to have the right management. You have to have a very high skill level for a common law trust. You really have to know what you're doing.
We start bringing in the beneficiaries about the age of 12 or so, just a little bit at a time. And once they hit about 15 or so, we try to bring them in on every meeting, because once they become 16 years old, they can be emancipated from the parents, or they can go off on their own. And if they decide to go off on their own, then the trustees are responsible for that child, to make sure that child is taken care of, because they are a beneficiary. So in other words, if they run into problems, they don't go run into mommy and daddy. Maybe they can run to a trustee, and the trustee can take care of the problem for them.
So it's a way of life. It's not just a kind of
Right.
It's not just an easy tactic to kind of protect assets. It's a whole way of thinking.
You know, if we didn't have the unfortunate mindset of the controllers of the planet, I would envision the world to be set up in all of the world set up in various common law trust sets. And in the common law trust, everyone is guaranteed by their own setup to have clothing, food, and shelter. And I think that you could put a whole world together under that format, and then these various mega trusts that are set up all over the place would be cross-vested, so that if one of them had a bad time, and the other one would be able to, support them and so on.
Yeah.
That vision is in volume 1 in the back.
Right.
But it's the common law trust is really a government unto itself, and it's the government of a family. And what the mindset of this world does not want, they don't want the competition. And so the way it has to be handled under this set of circumstances is very quietly, but it still can be handled, and it still can be very legal and very safe. There's ways to make it very safe.
And
even though we set off the trigger, we know what not to do.
Also, like if you have a trust in England, and we have a trust here, and you had something we wanted, and uh, we would offer you, and our trust is doing fairly well. And say you have a piece of land here or a piece of land somewhere else that you want to get rid of, we could buy that piece of land from
As,
your trust
as a trust.
into
Our trust could buy
but
your.
could buy that piece of land and give you capital units in our trust here. In other words, be no money exchange whatsoever. And you would receive a distribution from this trust
To your beneficiaries.
to your beneficiary.
Oh, I see. This is kind of what Gwen you mentioned kind of at the start. You said about certificates.
Right.
Right.
That relates to that, does it? Is that
If you
beneficial?
Yeah, if you understand certificates and you understand money and you understand the foundation principles of money, which is what they really don't want you to know.
Right. Right.
And you can do all kinds of things with trust capital units because trust capital units are backed by the value of the trust.
Mm. Is that a bit like government bonds? Are they the same thing as that? Or is that
No,
different?
no.
Okay, right.
Oh, you know,
You terrified me here.
you talked about,
Okay.
well, it is the same sense in that government bonds are backed by the value of the country, right?
Right,
And
but that's a different instrument, is it?
it's a different kind of thing,
Yeah.
but the same thing can apply to a trust.
Right.
You know, if we have $10,000 a month coming into a trust, boy, you want to be part of that. If you can get a couple capital units, you
Oh, I
can
see.
do okay, right?
It's kind of like
So-
shares, isn't it? A little bit like shares? Or?
Yeah,
Similar.
similar to shares, but
Say shares you have to purchase, and that's a taxable event if you purchase something.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Where capital units in a trust or trust certificates
Yeah.
you can exchange for.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Taxable event. Exchange is not a taxable event.
Ah,
there's possibilities of buying them, but
You can't buy trust capital units too. So
right. Yeah.
the big thing about it is that a share, you can personally, if you hold a share, you can personally sell it. Okay. With a trust capital unit, you have to return it to the board of trustees, and they can do what they want with it.
you could try to sell it back to them, or you could say, I would like this to go to another beneficiary or whatever.
Mm.
And it's up to the board of trustees to determine if they want to purchase it back or if they want to comply with your wishes.
Mm. Oh, I
It's
see.
It's handled much different.
Okay. So if people want to order the book from the website, what's the current price with shipping?
Well, it all depends on where it's going. It's $39.95 plus the shipping costs, and shipping in the United States is $7, and it goes all the way up to about 25 all over the world. So depending on it go
Right.
over.
And it looked like quite a big book there, Frank. You showed it to us.
Well, there's two of them.
Yeah.
One is 300 some odd pages long. It's almost 400 pages, 350 pages
Wow.
for the small one. Volume 1 and Volume 2
Very fat.
is almost 600 pages.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they're big books. Yeah, they're not just little pamphlets or nothing.
Just like I mentioned, Volume 1 is for everybody.
Yeah.
They can read it and try to understand it. Volume 2 is for the student or the one who really wants to get involved with trust and really learn about it.
Yeah.
And this is like a textbook, and there's no easy. It's not really an easy read, but it's as far as like you're going to see pictures or comic books in it. It's not that, but it's an informative read. It'll keep you going, and I'll tell you page by page how to set up your own trust. It's like going to a college class, basically, but it's written at a 9th grade level, so
A little more higher.
maybe 10th grade level, something like that.
Right.
Both Gwen and I are previous tech writers. Gwen more so than I, and I worked in aircraft, and she worked for IBM,
Oh, yeah.
writing technical manuals.
Bosch Fernseh.
Oh,
I
excuse
was
me.
writing. I wrote television character generator. It's been so long since I've done that. kept writing for Bosch Frenzy, and they produced television equipment. And
Right.
so did all the instructions on that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but this book was written by several people, and we had an editor. And believe me, it drove him crazy.
Right. Right. Oh, I see. Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm definitely going to encourage people to come to your website then and begin with the first book at least, if not the second one as well. You've given us plenty to think about, plenty of food for thought. I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Well, I appreciate you wanting to know. That's delightful. How did you find out about us?
Well, I don't remember exactly. It was on the internet. As you know, there's so many forums and discussion groups, and a friend of mine has bought your book and he mentioned it, and the people on the forum were talking about it, and there was a little bit of it on Google Books. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yeah.
There's like portions of it, like extracts of
Yeah.
it. And
Right.
I took a little look. I read a portion of it. And yeah, so I thought I'd just try and get in contact because I've been interviewing all sorts of different people about these type of topics, and I think people seem to enjoy watching the interviews. People, because it's nice to hear straight from the horse's mouth about these things because. Reading on a forum, you don't really get a feel when you're just reading text.
Yeah.
You don't get the same feel, but when you can hear people talk and tell the story, you can really get a feel for it a lot better. So yeah, these interviews have been quite popular. So yeah,
What is your background, Ben?
my
What is your back?
background. Well, actually, I was a musician. I was a guitarist. I'm
Oh, of
28.
course.
Yeah, I'm 28 years old, and I started playing guitar when I was young, and then I taught guitar when up until a few years ago, and I became interested in law and these type of topics when I got a huge tax bill which I couldn't pay, and and so all of a sudden I lost interest in music and suddenly became interested in human rights and political
Right.
that type of thing, and so here we are. So yeah.
I was just thinking, from a musician to this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, well, this just seems so much more exciting, actually, than music.
And
This
then
is exciting.
one other thing about Gwen and I, how we really got together is both were professional astrologers.
Oh,
So we have that
Talk
all.
about a leap, your leap from music to this, our
Yeah.
leap that to this,
oh
We're
wow,
both these big leaps.
right. Oh, astrologers. Oh wow. Tell us a little bit more about that. That's
No,
Well,
Yeah.
actually, we both did readings for probably about 10 years or so, and we played around with it while we were doing this. We still play around with it now and then. For probably over the last 2 to 3 years, both Gwen and I have been involved with 13 sign astrology, which is Ophiuchian astrology, which is coming in. You probably heard of Ophiuchus on the internet someplace,
no, I
or
haven't. No.
or 13 sign astrology,
Oh,
which is completely different than 12. It's similar, but yet completely different than 12 sign astrology.
it's
That's-
based on positive and negative charge.
And also, it is the type of astrology that Nostradamus used.
oh,
But
right.
it has evolved from the 16th century, as it evolved to the 21st century now. And there's so much stuff that was left out between there and now. So
Oh,
we're trying to find out what those holes were that were left out, and it's been a very interesting journey.
oh wow. How fascinating. Oh, that's great. I
And
quite
I'm
regularly listen to Coast, and and I love those type of topics.
absolutely not ready to talk about 13 sign astrology.
Do you have a website for that topic as well?
No, no, we don't. We don't.
Okay.
Just to let people who are interested in astrology know that 13 sign astrology is based practically solely on positive and negative charge, which is something in 12 sign astrology they have no clue about.
Oh,
It
right.
isn't. It is so far off the charts that it's unbelievable.
Oh wow. Oh, do you have any comments on 2012 at all?
I do not do predictions. I
Uh,
have made myself too many
It's
times a
it's
fool.
it's a year of the dragon, the black water dragon. That's in Chinese astrology, and it'll be a good year for most people, especially me because I'm a dragon. So
right.
Yeah, we're not into the dire.
no,
Right.
As far as 2012 is concerned, it's been talked about and everything else. The only thing Mayan said that time would end at December 21st, 2012. So we're going to start a new calendar. So I mean, that's the way I have to look at it. We're going to just going to tear off this one and say, okay, we're going to start with day one for the next 5,000 years. So that's,
But if you want some good news, go to the website John Kettler Investigates.
John
And he
Kettler
will
investigates.
And he will tell you how the dark cabal is being taken down internally.
Mm.
It will be most exciting.
All right. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be interested in that because, once people are open-minded to one topic, they tend to be open-minded to a whole range of topics, don't they,
That's why 2012 is not going to be such a disaster.
Right.
He talks about off-world intervention, and he actually documents through his contacts with the military how much stuff has happened that most people don't know about taking black projects and equipment.
Oh, wow.
So it's very interesting. But see our website first,
oh, he's been there.
www.passingbucks.com before
Yeah.
you go.
And the people, I think the people, once they get there, they should read all the documentation that the courts have filed against us, and they should read our responses to it.
Yeah.
And we don't want to turn people off as far as buying the book. We want them to be informed and let them know what can happen if you turn the corner the wrong way. And also, they will note in the government's documents that they did not find any wrong with us as far as the trusts are concerned. So the books are valid. That's the main point. That the books will not lead you down a dark road to where you're going to end up losing all your money. If you stay within the guidelines of what the books show you, you should not have any problem.
So in a way, sorry, the lawsuit is actually a good thing because in a way it's kind of validated because it's been tested and challenged and
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
it's validated. Yeah.
Also, there's many articles on the website. They can skip the legal stuff. If they're not into the legal stuff, just skip it and go to the articles.
Articles are very good.
Okay.
And like you, instead of getting married, let's say there's a gay couple and they want to get married. And we go like, why would you want to get married? Because you don't really have to.
Yeah.
But if you put all your assets into a common law trust, you share your wealth like a married couple. And then if you split, your wealth is still in the trust and you're still getting the benefits of it. All right? So you don't have to stay together. Okay? And with married couple with children, put your assets in the trust. The children have the assets. If you don't want to stay together, just leave. And the financial situation doesn't change.
And then also with that situation, where the children go out and get married, and they're still beneficiaries of the trust, and the person they marry has the right of use of those particular assets. But if they get a divorce in 10 years, that person that they married has to leave and does not get any of the assets because they never owned them. The trust owned them, even though they may have been living in a house that they both shared for 20 years, but the trust owned the house. They did not.
So there's nothing to fight over.
So what he said, well, I want half the house. No, you don't.
Not your house.
Yeah, right. Oh, wow. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time.
Well,
we really appreciate it.
Well,
Okay.
have a good Monday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll do. All right, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Bye.